She goes into debt, so she basically asked for it. She didn't kind of showed up late to get it before time. And then is that for straight? It's for the last.
You can go ahead with that. You can go. You can go. You can go. Man, he's genius.
All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and get started. We want to thank you for coming to our final presentation of our 23 cohort. Ms. Sweeten has been asked to answer 3 questions on the side of the room. Who does she aspire to be as a teacher? What opportunities does she engage in to become a better teacher? And how is she prepared to maximize her student teaching internship this spring? She will have 30 minutes to do so. We'll keep time at the back, and we'll have 10 minutes for questions when she's done. Jess is going to be monitoring our online platform. So those of you in Zoom and Facebook world, if you have questions for Anna, then we would ask you to put those in the chat so she can translate them. And when the time comes, we would also encourage folks in the room here to engage in those questions as well. Anna, they're all yours.
All right. Well, first off, I want to start by saying thank you to everybody for being here. It really means so much to me. You guys have all helped me so much in my journey, so I really appreciate it. If you can see, there's a QR code up here. Feel free to scan that to see any of my documents, like my philosophy statement, as well as some of the graphics that will be shown here are also in there if you want to get a closer look. That's also on the little handout that you guys passed coming in. So before I tell you about my agriculture education journey here at Penn State, I should probably introduce myself a little bit more to those of you that don't know me. So I grew up in this little town in New York called Cuba, New York. You probably have never heard of it. Their main thing is like cheese. But while I was there, I showed horses for 8 years in 4-H. That's my horse Honey. She's no longer with us, but she taught me so much. And I also competed in IEA, which is the Interscholastic Equestrian Association. That was just a really awesome opportunity where we just go to these shows, draw this random horse we never knew before, and how to get on it and ride it like we've known for years. So that was just super awesome. I did that with my sister. She's been a big impact in the agriculture world for me. She kind of was the reason I got into it. And then up in the top corner, when I was 15, I moved to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, which was not necessarily my favorite thing that I ever went through. But because I love horses so much, when I was sitting in the guidance counselor office trying to schedule my classes, I was crying. It was really sad. And she said, take whatever class you want. And I said, oh my goodness, there's a horse class. I got to get into that. And before that, I had never really had any experience with any other agricultural things. I just thought I was like, oh, horses, why do I need to get into agriculture any deeper? Well, I was wrong. And you'll see why in a little bit. So for my first question, who do I aspire to be as a teacher? My teaching philosophy starts with wanting my students to learn and grow, not only educationally, but as a person. I want my students to feel like competent in whatever they can do, feel that they can complete anything. I also want to create an inclusive learning environment. I want students to feel welcome in my classroom. I want them to feel like they can come to me with anything that they have. I also want to cultivate career success. There's so many career opportunities within agriculture that can lead students to, so I want to support them in their dreams and help them achieve them. I also want to utilize multiple modes of learning, so whether students learn best hands-on, visual, or auditory, I want to be able to reach all of them so they can take something away from the class. And then lastly, I want to utilize a well-rounded curriculum, so that means incorporating the 3-circle model that agriculture education has. So that's SAE, FFA, and classroom instruction, and I'll get into a little bit more of those in a few slides. So for classroom management, I'm going to start with my procedures here. I want my students to come prepared and have a seat. They'll complete bell work every day, which is usually just going to be a question of the day. Sometimes it'll be just to get to know them, see how they're feeling, how they're doing mentally. And then I want them to be present and active in class. I don't want them just to be there, but I want them to be there mentally. I want them to be involved. Which goes to the next procedure, which is participate in class reflections. At the end of class, I want to know what students learned. I want to see maybe what they think about the content, if they have any questions, and then they'll complete their exit ticket, which is going to be kind of my gauge to see if we need to go back and revisit any content. The other poster I want to point out is my consequences poster. I really don't want to have to use all these consequences, but it's super important to put these in place so students feel like, you know, there's some structure in the classroom. They can't just run crazy. So first, if students are just kind of being rude, they're going to get a verbal warning. If that continues, they're going to have a talk after class. After that, they'll get parent guardian contact. And then lastly, offers referral. Depending on the severity of their actions, it might skip a few steps. And then after offers referral, it could be detention or suspension. And then lastly, my favorite poster, because I think it's pretty clever, Ms. Sweeten's tips for a sweet classroom. So these are my classroom expectations. I expect my students to show up for class, and like I said, not just be there, but be there mentally and prepared to learn. Work hard, not everything comes easy, but if they try, I'm gonna be so proud of them. Next, I want to engage in discussion. Sometimes students are afraid to step out of their comfort zone and, get into the classroom discussion, but I think they can learn a lot from their peers. And then the next need, elevate enthusiasm. This probably sounds a little weird to some of you, but I believe that enthusiasm can be contagious. So not every student is going to love every topic that they learn, but if that one student does like it, shows that they're excited, it can get other students more interested and want to learn it. Feel like it's okay to maybe be excited about this topic. And then lastly, I want to implement the golden rule. This is a pretty standard rule that classrooms have, but I think it's super, super important to state that you should treat others the way that you want to be treated. And I will follow this rule as well as I'm going to treat my students with respect, just like if they treat me with respect. So in my model program curriculum, I want my students to all start with an intro to ag class. We'll go cover plant science, animal science, maybe a little bit of ag mag, environmental science. After their freshman year, after they take this class, they can take multiple different pathways from animal science, plant science, ag mechanics, and actually ag leadership. And then not necessarily to have to go in this path, but the ideal pathway would be small animal care, large animal care, and the last would be vet science, and that kind of goes with the rest of them. So one project that we had to do this year that is really fun is a $15 project that we could take into the classroom and our students can use. So I made a cutting board. This cutting board is relatively very inexpensive. It's made out of scrap wood and uses very few tools, but it's a good project to use for students who are just getting into the workshop because they can teach them measurements, how to use a saw safely, and just some other really cool things like wood glue, how to be safe with wood glue and not put it on your hands and faces and stuff. So. So part of that three-circle model that I talked about earlier is SAE integration. SAE stands for Supervised Agricultural Experience. I went to a workshop over the summer at PWAE, which I'll talk about later, and it's called SAE for All. So basically what that is all students start with a foundational SAE within the classroom. So an activity that we're doing in class, students can log in the record book and kind of get the flow and understand what an SAE might be. After that, they're strongly encouraged to do an immersion SAE, more on a topic that they might be interested in. There's also opportunities for some schools that have an independent study. So students can sign up for this independent study on SAE, and then whenever that time comes, they can come and work on that and get one-on-one time, maybe getting help for their SAE, things like that. Another part of that three-circle model is FFA integration. So I love FFA. I try and shout it out to all the students that I see. FFA is, again, part of that three-circle model. And the materials that you learn in class can directly relate to CDEs, which are career development events, or county competitions. Pennsylvania is an affiliate state, so most schools, they have an affiliate membership. So if you're in an ag class, you can participate and you're a member in FFA. So it's important to push those opportunities for students to grow and also learn more about the subjects that they're passionate about. So another assignment that we have is program recruitment. I have this little video here for you. Let me switch hands.
Oh, hey, I didn't see you there. I love ag because it doesn't only get me out of my seat, but it also gives my mind a powerful workout.
Oh, hey, I didn't see you there. I love ag because I get to learn more about nature.
Oh my god, hey, I didn't see you there. I love ag because it makes me get creative with what I learned.
Oh, hey, I didn't see you there. I love ag because it allows me to spend time learning about things that I love, like cows.
Okay, so the main point that we wanted to get across in this video when trying to recruit students is that agriculture is for everybody. No matter what your interests are, there's something there for everyone. So in the video, we had the valedictorian who liked to give his mind a workout. We had the nature girl who loved to hug trees. We had Krista, the cow person who loved cows. And then we had Amber, who was the artistic person, but she loved it because she could be creative with the things that she learned and she get the opportunity to do these hands-on projects. So that's the main point that we're trying to get across. We want diverse learners. We want everyone to know there's something there for them. Community integration. There's so many opportunities for the community to get involved in agriculture education. An example would be having guest speakers come in or taking field trips to a greenhouse. That's the one that comes to mind always when I think of this. Also just like getting involved with the community, fundraisers, plant sales, things like that. In my classroom, I also will see a number of diverse learners. So it's important to learn how to handle these learners and how to make them feel welcome. I went to a workshop on cultural diversity, and it's definitely more than what I thought it was at first. It's not just about someone's race, it's more about who they are. It's it is their race, it's their ethnicity, their religion, their sexuality, it's everything that makes them who they are. And we want to create an environment that welcomes all of them and they feel like there's a place for them. I also want to provide variability in the classroom. I want to reach students who learn better hands-on. I know that's the case for me. I'm really bad at like sitting in a lecture room and understanding what you're saying. But if I get a chance to actually go and do it, I do so much better at like remembering it. But I also want to reach learners who maybe do learn better in the lecture setting with visual aids or students who learn better auditorily. I also want to put in a number of accommodations. Like it's important to have closed captions on videos. I know some people don't like them, but not all students can hear as well. Not all students can get as close to the classroom. So it's important to have those kind of things as well as flexible seating. And that leads me to the next question was, what experiential educational opportunities have I engaged in to become a better agricultural educator? So some key courses I took, AE 350 with Dr. Ewing was a super awesome class. It taught me how to use so many different tools that I had never used before, I never thought I would use, but it made me feel more confident in using them. These two pictures over here, from that class, that's me and my co-member Krista sitting on top of a horse jump that we made together. And then on top, it's a picture of me and my co-member Grace. We're cutting some metal to make a pitch pen. The next class is 451. That's about hydroponics and aquaponics. I've never really had experience with hydroponics or aquaponics, and this course challenged me a lot. There was a lot of mathematical equations that I had to handwrite out, pages of numbers, but it was super awesome because we still got to do this lab component where we go into the greenhouse and we would grow our own produce and be able to take them home. So it was just super awesome to like watch something go from like a little seed and like into my belly. And then the last course on here is AE 204N with Dr. Curry. On the man on the street thing, that probably looks really, really good. You're like, what the heck's that? That was a course, that was an assignment we did in that course. That course is all about science literacy and like scientific policies and really making sure that the resources you're looking at are reliable and making sure like what you're learning means something. So this assignment is kind of like where we got into groups and we chose a topic and we would run up to these random people on campus and be like, hey, what do you know about this? And then usually their answer would be wrong. So my question was about antibiotics in food. And you would be shocked at the amount of people that think antibiotics treat viruses. Like that just blew my mind. And it just showed how important it is to make sure that our students are getting a good education before they are introduced to be these adults that they should be prepared to be and know that antibiotics don't treat viruses. Some certifications I got over the past few months that are going to help me in my journey. I got on a safe tractor driving certification. I also got OSHA 10 certified, which I think will help me greatly whenever I'm student teaching next semester because I know a lot of my students get OSHA certified. And I'm also a Google level 1 educator. The school that I'm student teaching at is a Google school. So I'm also CPR certified. I don't know why I didn't put that on there. If that's important, I can save your life, or at least try to. Some professional development events that I did. I'm going to give you guys some advice that I heard before I started going to these things. Krista Pani has told me that when you go to these things, be a sponge. Like go to everything, absorb everything that they tell you because these things are so useful. So I went to NAAE, which is the National Association for Agricultural Educators in Vegas a couple weeks ago. That experience was crazy. I had never been to a place so big and crowded, but it was a lot of fun. And it was so cool to see teachers from all over the country come and bring what they know. That picture down at the bottom, that is all the student teachers that went from all the universities that were there. in my eyes, I feel like that's kind of small. There's obviously other students around, but it's just kind of eye-opening to see like what a small community ag ed really is. When we were all sitting up there, apparently we got a standing ovation. I wouldn't know because the tall person was standing in front of me, but that's really cool, you know, it makes you feel really welcome. Over the summer, we also attended the Pennsylvania Association for Agricultural Educators conference. That was super awesome too, because I learned so many different things. I went to a Briggs and Stratton workshop with Mary Worsbach, and that was super cool because I felt like, man, I actually like learning something. I'm doing something that I know and I understand. And also everybody there has just been so welcoming and thankful. And so I couldn't be more blessed to hopefully become part of the Pennsylvania Association of Agricultural Educators. But and then over the summer, we also attended a summer boot camp. That was, I'm not gonna lie, it really was like a boot camp. It was intense. We learned a lot about lesson planning, curriculum planning, but it was really, really helpful walking in before we go to 412 at the beginning of the year. So some experience that I had that I think have helped me to become a better agriculture educator is I worked at Tractor Supply. You might be like, oh, Tractor Supply, but I had to communicate with a lot of customers about products. They would ask for recommendations for agricultural products, but I also learned a lot from my customers. I didn't know everything. Somebody walk away with this and be like, do you think this will work? And I'm like, I don't even know what that is. You know, like, can you educate me on like, what that might do? So I learned a lot that way. I also worked at this farm called Land of Little Horses in Gettysburg for a couple summers. I worked there caring for animals, but it wasn't just horses. There were like pigs and goats and camels and emus, which are really not very nice. I just want to put that out there, they're kind of neat. I also did like a month-long observation at CPI, which is Central Pennsylvania Institute for Technology. I wasn't there every day for a month, but I went there a lot. And it taught me a lot because I wasn't just observing Mr. Luther, who was the teacher there. He would be like, Anna, teach this class about plants. And I'm like, whoa, we're putting me on the spot here. What's a plant? You know, I just like forget everything. And then my inquiry practice. A lot of my core members have talked about this already. They were able to attend the Inquiry Institute, but unfortunately I was sick and I couldn't go. But I had the awesome opportunity to make up what I missed. And honestly, I feel like it was super beneficial for me. I went to my cooperating school and I taught a lesson about if double stuffed Oreos are actually double stuffed. But it was super useful because I taught that twice in the day. So I got to see what it was like to teach in the morning and then be able to adapt my lesson plans for learners later on. And then my last experience, I'm a pro taught at Greenwood High School underneath Costa Panes, and I taught the FFA leadership class, which was only 6 students. I thought this was super useful because in my cooperating school, I'm teaching an FFA leadership class of 5 students. And you might be thinking, oh my gosh, Anna, that's 5 students. Like, what kind of problem is that? You would be surprised. It is very difficult to teach a class of 6 students because things go so much more fast, like so much faster than you plan, and you really have to kind of adapt. So that's something I have to keep in my mind as I'm writing more lessons for my FFA leadership class. And my last question, how am I prepared to maximize my student teaching internship opportunity? So I'm student teaching at Kenderdale High School underneath Hannah Harris. She is wonderful. I couldn't be happier about where I'm going. There's 191 members / students in the program. So that's really eye-opening to me because when I first went to visit there was like 120, I think. So over the course of a year, they went up a lot, and that's awesome. I also remember the first time I went there, it's just a super welcoming environment. It's so great. I can't say enough good things about that place. Some of the facilities are over here. This is the classroom. What's not pictured there are some flexible seating options. They do have like a couch and some comfortable chairs that students are able to move away from the desk if they're doing schoolwork and are able to behave properly. They can sit on those couches and just kind of get a break. And then down here is the greenhouse where they host their annual plant sale. And then this is my favorite picture. You can't really tell, but there's a little goat there. It's like a little white blob. They have 2 goats there that students can care for and learn about. And their names, this is my favorite. Their names are Kenna and Dale. That's so great. Okay, so in my evaluation of the cooperating center, I basically only saw strengths. When I tell you I love this place, I love it. So they have a growing participation, like I said earlier. They went from like 120-ish students to 191. They also have a really supportive administration. The first time I walked into Kenderdale just to look at it before I even decided where I was going, the office lady was like, oh my goodness, are you gonna student teach here? We have the best, like you gotta come here. And I was like, oh my God, okay, I'll think about that. And then they also have 3 courses that contribute to continuing education. So I think it's animal science, plant science, and an NRM course. They count as credits at Delaware Valley University. So because I said how much I love the school, I had to collaborate with my cooperating teacher to find out some room for improvement. And one thing we discussed was OAC effectiveness. They just don't have as much OAC participation as they'd like, so they're working on trying to find more people to join. And they also talked about adding another meeting throughout the year to kind of get some things worked out. There's also no alumni chapter, but Ms. Harris also mentioned to me that she's looking at hoping to start one. And then there's also a low amount of program from theaters. I think that was something that we can totally improve on. I'm hoping that I can help with this while I'm there to try and keep students wanting to come back in and just keep it growing. So while I'm there, I'll be teaching 5 different classes. I'm teaching a class on animal care and management. I'll be taking that through the full 15 weeks. During that class, we're going to be talking a lot about like production animals, caring for them. I'll be teaching plant soil studies. We'll be preparing for the plant sale at the end of the year. FFA leadership class, which I'm so sorry, it's so dark you can't really see, but we'll be working on a lot of things in that class as well. Vet science and small gas engines. So I'm super excited to have such a variety that I get to teach. And then I think that I have some strengths walking into student teaching. I have a growth mindset. And while some people might disagree with this, I think it's really important to note that we are constant learners. I don't know everything, but I think I can learn so much from my students. And I think it's important to admit that. A lot of people are like, I'm the teacher. I don't know. You don't have to tell me anything. But that's not true. We're always learning. I'm also very understanding. I want students to feel comfortable coming to me with their problems. I'm not going to judge them. I'm here for them. And then I also like to think I'm organized. I like to call myself a chaotic organizer. I make things messy before I make them clean. But one way that I was able to stay organized this semester was using like Google and Excel and like Microsoft Teams. I had never used that before and it really like affected me. And then some goals that I have for student teaching. I want to be able to reach more students with my lessons. I want every student, like I said before, to feel like they're taking something home from the class. I feel like I'm still trying to find ways to do that, but I'd like to be able to perfect that. Another goal that I have is to learn more about topics that I'm unsure of. Again, like I said, I don't know everything. We all have our strengths and weaknesses with topics. I'd also like to be a part of Kennerdale's growth. I feel like they're going through a really big growth period right now. And then also I'd like to grow my confidence. I'm shaking my boots up here. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm really nervous to be up here, but I feel like the more practice that I get, the more confident I'll become. Okay, and lastly, I just want to thank a few people in the room. My grandparents can't be here today, and my sisters aren't here either, but sorry. But I'm really thankful for all these people because college has been really hard for me, and I don't think I'd still be here if it wasn't for them. So thank you all. Oh, and then there's a Chuck Norris quote at the end that I forgot. But yeah, it's basically just about there's things that you can't change in your past, but you can change things in the future. So always strive to do the best that you can. Thanks.
Transition to the question and answer portion of the event. I'll change things up and open it up to the audience first. Who'd like to ask the first question?
Okay, Mom.
To elaborate, you said college has been difficult, and which it is, but how would you make things less difficult for your students?
Not that there weren't people that were here for me, but it was like a big change. There was a lot of things going on behind closed doors that I feel like not really understood. So that's what I meant by when I said I want to just be like more understanding for my students. I want them to feel comfortable coming to me, no matter what the problem is. Obviously, I'm a mandated reporter, so like some things I'm gonna have to go tell somebody, but I want them to feel like I'm that person in that safe place that they can go confide in. Because college is stressful, it's hard, and you need that person.
And I have a question that I haven't got to ask yet. So my last chance. Here it is. What do you think about this? The question is, do grades matter or does learning matter? What is the difference?
Well, grades is just learning matters. To start off, learning matters, not grades. Some people are really bad test takers. And so they may know the subject super well, but they may be taking that test and be shaking their boots. And I just think it's more important having them be able to tell you what they learned rather than show it on a piece of paper and be graded for everything that they do. I don't think that's what matters in school.
And my question is an extension of that. If let's pretend I'm an administrator and you're in an interview situation and I say, I don't know what this newfangled ag education three-circle model nonsense is. I don't know what any of that means. All I care about is that my district reports good scores for biology and English and all the things that matter for testing. How is this ag program going to impact the bottom line when it comes to testing and academic outcomes for my district? What's the benefit that the ag program can provide whenever all that really matters is the grades and numbers that are reported to the district with all the academic standards?
Well, I think it's valuable that students can be graded/tested in multiple different ways in agriculture education, like a practicum is what I like to think of. A lot of times growing up, I've heard of practicums in vet science where you'd be graded on if you can give an injection properly and be graded on that. Is that kind of like answering your question? Or do you mean like a multiple choice test? Because I just think it's really important that you can test students in such a variety of ways that can accommodate all different types of learners and kind of help alleviate some of that testing anxiety.
That's great. I'm going to rephrase it and say, I'm the principal now. And I'm saying, what value does your ag program provide to the school whenever you're not a testing area? We're not reporting your scores to the state when it comes time for funding for my district.
Okay.
What value does your ag program provide for the academic standards that I am tested on, that I am reporting to the state?
Okay, so students get to see where like the core subjects like math and English would relate to real life scenarios more directly. So I know sometimes it's easier for students to like implement things that they know how to do. So if you're doing like a math equation, like on a piece of paper, like, oh my goodness, but then you can try and relate it to something maybe you learned about fertilizer. You know, you're like, okay, well, if this was like nitrogen, blah, blah, blah. Like it's easier to relate it to things that you can actually physically do. Carson.
In a couple of years, you're going to be part of a cohort of hundreds of teachers across the state. What will you be known for to those professional colleagues from the Northwest to the Southeast, all over? What is going to be your brand?
Well, I'm hoping my brand would be that like, man, like they're gonna see me like Anna Sweeten, she goes to like the edges for her students. Like she just always tries to get them to be their best. I mean, almost like that word. Like she pushes them because she knows she can do it. And like I'm gonna push them to try to be better as well and support them.
So as a follow-up, do you think you've laid the seeds for that as a member of this current cohort?
I think I have done a good job at least encouraging my students, my cohort, to do their best and let them know that they're capable of it. Brandon?
So you discussed in your presentation, great presentation, by the way, that you moved, and I don't know the exact time, but you moved between states from New York to Pennsylvania. And so I am curious how that experience shapes you and how that impacts you as you go into the classroom and how you might relate to your students through that experience.
Okay, so I moved in my 10th grade year, and that was really hard because I feel like usually when you're in high school, everybody has like cliques already and you're like kind of scared to like break in. But it taught me a lot about, well, first being independent. You know, I was alone a little bit in school. But it also taught me how to break out of my shell and to find those friends and encourage like myself to just kind of step out of my comfort zone. And that's kind of what I want to do for my students. I want them to not feel like they're put in a box. I want them to step out of that box and see what all they can accomplish.
In your presentation, you showed us a wide variety of things in your master calendar that you're going to be teaching at Kennedale. What would you say is your like favorite thing, be it a unit or a specific lesson that you plan for this semester?
So something that I'm really excited to teach is the unit called The 7 Habits. This is based off of a book. It's called The 7 Habits for Effective People, I believe that's the title. But in this unit, we're going to talk about how we can be a better leader, better ourselves individually, and better work with other people. So I just think it's really important skills to know.
And what can you tell us about how you're prepared to teach students of diverse students, diverse learners?
So like the accommodations or just like diverse?
However you want to take.
Okay, well, first, I just want to create a welcoming environment. There's no toleration for like hate. You want people to feel welcome to come in. So that counts for the cultural diversity. As far as accommodations, I want to provide visual aids, demonstrations. I'll have guided notes sometimes just to try and reach more students. And then I also just want to implement a bunch of different like activities. So labs, games, regular, just like Kahoots, things like that. Audie.
You said that you were a horse girl and then you like didn't realize that was agriculture. So do you think that I think that's cool. Like, do you think that impacts your ability to help students relate to agriculture where maybe they don't realize?
So I did know that like horses were agriculture, but I thought that was all that I really needed to know. Like I was in school in New York and I was like, I don't need to join any ag classes. I got enough agriculture at home. Why do I need to do that? But then when I moved to Gettysburg, I was like, oh my goodness, there's like plants and like FFA leadership, and, like engines. And I was like, holy cow, this is so awesome. So I just think it's important to like make my students understand that, like try new things. Like even if you don't think it's agriculture, like what's the matter? Like it's super cool to try these things and find out that like how it does relate to you.
What specifically inspired you to become an ag teacher? Was it a person, a place, a thing, a certain experience? I'd love you to expand.
So I had two wonderful high school ag teachers, Jenna Timmons and Laura Kennedy. I was so blessed. They showed me so much grace, even when I was like a total punk. They showed me how much of an impact agriculture education can have on a student's life, and I would love to pay that forward.
I see that you're teaching a unit called Greenhouse Management and Plant and Soil Studies.
I am.
I would like for you to give me an example of how you integrate the total school-based ag education model through that course. An example of an FFA and an SAE connection.
Okay, so in that class, students are going to be preparing for their plant sale, so they can count that as an SAE, where they record, like what's going to happen, how much money they make from the plant sale, and then they can use that SAE to go towards degrees in FFA, or also the skills that they learned in that class to compete in CDEs.
What CDEs?
I believe there's a nursery landscape one that will help with plant growth. That would be perfect.
Awesome. Thank you.
Questions for you?
Great.
So you mentioned that you're really like, you always, when you get the opportunity to tell students about FFA, you get like really excited about that. So I'm just wondering like what your first thing, like you would tell them, like make them want to join the FFA.
The first thing I would do would ask them, what's your favorite thing to do? Like, what are your hobbies? Try and find something that I can relate to them to take away from like the classroom and put into FFA. So like, they're like, oh, I mean, I like gardening. I'm like, oh my gosh, perfect. Join FFA. We can do some really cool things. Or like, they're like, I want to be a vet someday. Like, oh my goodness, please join. We're gonna get you ready for the vet CDE. They're gonna take the vet science class. It's gonna be awesome. So just kind of finding an interest.
Can you help me congratulate Ms. Sweeten? This last of our final presentations, we asked you to retire at 2:14. We have a last little bit of business to finish up with Ms. Sweeten.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you for participating.
There's a car out here with its flash.
You still have people.